these pictures are newer for me and I have to kind of stop them, so, okay. All right, let's look at this. Okay, first of all, what the heck are we looking at? All right, here's the Bowman's capsule, here's the glomerulus, this is the renal corpuscle, this is the beginning of the proximal convoluted tubule right here, so that's what we've got there. This is part of the distal convoluted tubule here, so this is this little part piece right here. And this part here in red is the arterioles coming in and coming out. So we kind of zoomed in for this little special area. So this little special area has a long name. I have the hardest time saying it. Juxtaglomerular apparatus. Juxtaglomerular apparatus. That's what we refer to this association you see between that distal convoluted tubule here and the afferent and efferent arteriole there. So it's actually with intention. I mean, again, it's not just where it just happens to touch up. I mean, this is a specific site in our nephron called the juxtaglomerular apparatus. And so we have within this two types of cells we kind of want to identify. Right here, these in kind of purpley blue are called the juxtaglomerular cells, or also called JG cells, which is a lot easier to say. Okay. These cells release renin. Remember when we learned about renin releasing and blood pressure? It was like, so in response to drops in blood pressure, the kidneys release renin. You're like, okay, well, this is where it happens. So these cells here are monitoring the blood pressure in these arterioles, and when that blood pressure drops, they will release renin into the bloodstream to actually start it's a process called the renin-angiotensin mechanism to bring blood pressure back up. So these are renin releasing cells here. Now the cells in green here are located in the distal convoluted tubule, and they are called macula densa cells. And their main job is they're monitoring the solute concentration of the urine. How concentrated is the urine? That's their job. And so in response to the urine being very dilute, they can say, okay, everything's really going really fast. Let's slow stuff down, make a more concentrated urine. Or they can say, whoo, this urine's really concentrated. Let's maybe speed some of this up, not reabsorb quite so much, and make a little bit more dilute urine. So they monitor how concentrated is our urine and then can adjust the rate in which we produce our raw filtrate. So we have a rate called, and this is again in the next section, called the glomerular filtration rate. It's a GFR, and it means how fast do we produce our urine in the layman's terms. What's the production rate here? You know, just like with any machine, think of any machine, I have a production rate. If it was an old-fashioned copy machine, you can set it and say, okay, I need it to make 50 copies a second. Or if you have a copy machine, I have this copier, it's a new copier, and I thought I was gonna love this copy machine. It's way too slow, it doesn't make near enough copies per minute. So my rate is low versus something that produces a lot of them, the high-end thing. Same thing here. I have a rate at which I make urine, a normal set point, and I can speed it up or slow it down depending upon what's going on in the body. So I can adjust that rate. And so that's what we'll be talking about a little bit. But these help to monitor what is my urine looking like as I begin to get it toward the collecting ducts over here. Okay. I don't know how I got through all that so fast, because this is where I would normally stop. And I apparently just flew through it. And I was trying to go, okay, here it is. All right. So that gets us through functions of the urinary system, general structures, supportive tissues. I did not talk about two conditions, which I need to do that. Basic internal anatomy, the blood supply, what a nephron is. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this. Okay, a few few little things. We'll stop up, it'll be close to time. Since we're still kind of on this, let's kind of go ahead and let me just write down, let's compare, the glomerulus versus peritubular capillaries. Because again, this is a capillary bed. Both of these are capillary beds. Unique. It is supplied and drained by an artery or arterial. We don't have any other capillary bed that has an artery at both ends. Normal capillary beds have an arterial at one end and a venule at the other. There's no venule. You have the afferent and efferent arterial. So that's a unique thing here. 2, also we'll star it. High pressure. And then over here we can say it's a low pressure. Highly porous. What else was there? Someone threw something else. Maybe that was it only 2. Continuous type of capillary versus over here. Fenestrated capillary. When we talked about blood vessels and then we talked about arteries and veins, we talked about capillaries and we described the structure of a capillary. And we said there are 3 types of capillaries. We have continuous capillaries, we have fenestrated capillaries, we have sinusoidal capillaries. So you had a sinusoidal capillary in the liver. Fenestrated capillaries mean that here's our capillaries and I have fenestrations or holes, pores. That allow things to move out of that capillary. Remember, continuous capillaries had some tight junctions, and so they allowed things to diffuse out, but they weren't they were the most restrictive of all the 3 types of capillaries. Those are your continuous ones. These then have all these holes or fenestrations, and then the sinusoidal had these big, look like Swiss cheese. Remember, they had big clefts, so they had huge, big open spaces that cause things to meander through. So these have fenestrations or fenestration pores. And this would be just a continuous type over here. So the peritubular is really a traditional style capillary bed, whereas the glomerulus is unique in 2 ways. There's other areas that you find fenestrated capillaries that we've not covered, so I can't say that that's a unique thing. But it's unique here in that it's fed and drained by an arterial, because you don't see that anywhere else, and you don't see the high pressure system. The pressure is about 2 to 3 times what it would be at a normal capillary. Okay. All right. Other two homeostatic imbalances that I did not mention. So let me go back to just a picture of a kitty. Here we go. And we needed to define pyelitis and pyelonephritis. So and we can actually do it, well, okay. So a bladder infection is an infection in the bladder. So that's just not one of these. There's another term, that's cystitis. When we have an infection in the kidney and it's in the renal pelvis area, it's called pyelitis. P-Y. Let me double check how to spell it. P-Y-E. I-P-Y-E-L-I-T-I. Like this. Like I'm missing something. That's it. Pyelitis. If that infection moves into the actual medulla and cortex area of the kidney, it's called pyelonephritis, meaning I've involved the nephrons as well. Which obviously is going to tell you it's going to be a little bit more serious because I'm affecting the urine filtering production at that point. Both of these you would expect to have fever, definitely would probably have some lower back pain associated with them. The big risk you see with pyelitis and pyelonephritis, two things. A, the inflammation is so severe you damage the nephrons and you could damage the kidneys so they don't function as a filtering unit anymore, so you can impair the kidneys and actually go into kidney failure. But what we see a lot of times with pyelitis and pyelonephritis is the person will go septic. So you have sepsis. The bacteria makes its way from the kidneys into the bloodstream. You see this quite often, sometimes with, geriatric people present very oddly with kidney infections. I don't know how many of y'all know that or not, but they act quite different. What would be we're way off track, but what's a normal bladder infection? Symptoms would be sense of urgency, that you have to pee all the time, burning on urination, particularly if there's blood present, it's quite painful. And you might run a little bit of fever, so you've got some fever, you've got that kind of stuff. Then you start progressing, you may have a little bit more fever, you get the classic really bad, your back's really hurting way back up here in the lumbar area, so a lot of people don't make the connection between that's where your kidneys are and that's why your back's hurting. And then a lot of times it can make it away from that, the bacteria get into the bloodstream, and then you have your sepsis state. So a person can become sepsis just from basically a kidney infection. It's quite common to see. Now, just with geriatrics, so you'll know, older person with geriatrics will complain of no symptoms whatsoever. No sense of urgency, no pain on urination. About the only way you'll notice it, particularly with geriatrics, if you're dealing with people who have to wear things for incontinence, you'll notice an odor. And then they may or may not have a fever. A lot of them don't run fevers. And they have what we call an altered mental status. They go crazy, they act crazy. You think, oh my God, what has happened? She's out of her mind, she's had a stroke, there's some major events going on, and they've just got a UTI. So it's one of the things when somebody comes in and then you get grandma who's got this really crazy altered mental status, and you're not seeing a paralysis or anything, but she doesn't know where she's at. She thinks she's, having a baby, or whatever she's doing. You're like, oh, grandma, And they go in there and they check them. They go, okay, there's been no stroke. This has not happened, but and the next thing we're going to do is we're looking for a UTI and see if that's it, because they'll act really, really crazy. And then from there you go to, okay, are we severely dehydrated? Because you see that again, another signs with geriatric people with dehydration. Just file that away for information you might need. All right, let's go ahead and stop there because this is a great place to stop. I don't really like to get into the physiology